achieved.
Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson, and on this edition of the show, we are going to be breaking down UFC 143, Diaz vs. Condit, which will take place live on February 4th, 2012, from Las Vegas, Nevada. I'll be doing 5 predictions for the main card, along with 3 preliminary picks, and because it's Super Bowl weekend, I'm also going to give you guys my prediction for the big game between the New England Patriots and the New York Giants. Now, before getting into all the predictions, let's take a quick look at my sponsors. As always, thank you very much to MMABettingOdds.com, CouchFighter.co, MMACrips.com, and the new one, FightTV.com. All those sites graciously hosting my videos, and please check them out. They're all really cool websites, so please give them a shout. As you might notice over here, KamikazeOverdrive.net is going to be one of the new homes. I'm going to be putting up my own website with the help of my friends over at MMABettingOdds.com. I'm going to host my own site. It might not be up and running by the time you're watching this video. Hopefully I'll have it up soon. And on that site you'll be able to check out my videos, some of the write-ups. I might look to branch out and add a few more people to my writing team. I'm also going to, of course, do my rankings and my betting packages. Now, my last show, UFC on Fox 2, didn't go quite that well. I went 4 and 5. I went 2 and 1 on the main card, which is the important part, because those are the fights I put the most thought into. But in the betting package I sent out for those who did purchase the betting packages, and always you can look in the description below to see the information on how to purchase them. I did hit one of the parlays I sent out. It paid just over $200 if you bet the amount I suggested you bet. So those who did purchase a package, hopefully you cashed in there, and I will be doing the same thing for this event. So again, check out the description below and follow the information. Or you can go to my website when it's up and running, and you can see all the information that's there. Now, the Grand Prix prediction tournament. We're down to the final 2, Klubal and Kane Gotti. And of course, these guys have waded through 5 rounds, 4 tough opponents to get to this final round. And, you know, Kane Gotti comes up with an 18-17 lead out of the first event, which was UFC on Fox 2. 3 more events to go, so 18-17 Kane Gotti leading Klubal, but lots of time to go there. And I think that's enough from me. It's time to get into the predictions. Let's look at my Super Bowl pick first. Alright, as I said, I'm going to do a Super Bowl prediction. If you're here for only MMA, skip to the next section. This year's Super Bowl will be contested between the New York Giants and the New England Patriots. A couple of years ago, these teams met, and the New York Giants ended the New England Patriots' perfect season by upsetting them in the Super Bowl. As far as the line goes, the New England Patriots opened as a 3.5-point favorite, have since dropped to 2.5 points, meaning that people are starting to jump on the New York Giants. Now, as far as scheduling goes, very interesting. I think this favors the Giants right off the bat. They've been playing playoff football for the 5 weeks prior to this, having to beat Dallas to get into the playoffs, then Atlanta, Green Bay, and San Francisco through the playoffs. Well, New England cruised to a relatively easy division title, had a first-round bye, blew out the Denver Broncos at home, and then took on a very questionable road team, the Baltimore Ravens, and barely defeated them at home to get to the final. So I think the Giants have been playing better football of late, and that favors them significantly. Now, as far as injuries goes, one significant one stands out to me. New England Patriots tight end Rob Gronkowski has a high ankle sprain, is questionable for the game. Maybe by the time you're seeing this, he could be out. I think he will suit up. The question is how effective will he be and how much time will he spend on the field, and I don't think very much in that sense. So I think that's going to be a huge blow to the New England Patriots offense. Now, comparing offense versus defense, the Patriots have really had success this year based on their offense. With Tom Brady, Wes Welker, and company, they're a very dynamic offense. And they had their issues against Baltimore's defense. And Baltimore's a good defense, but they're aging. And one thing I look at with the Giants, they have a very young, fast, aggressive defense, especially with their NASCAR package, Justin Tuck and company. I really think the Patriots are going to struggle to put up points against the New York Giants, or at least have success early on. I think you're going to see some turnovers going the way of the Giants, which is big for the New York Giants. I think you're going to see Brady forced into positions he doesn't like and see him get frustrated early. Flipping the coin, looking at the Patriots' defense against the Giants' offense, the Patriots have a very poor defense, and I think the playoffs misrepresented how bad that defense is. On the other side of the ball, the New York Giants' offense is very strong and diverse. With Bradshaw and Jacobs on the running back, they can pound the ball. I expect them to put a lot of pressure and force New England to load up on the box. And it's going to create some one-on-one matchups on the outside for guys like Nix, Mario Manningham, and Cruz on their wide receivers. And I really think that Eli Manning and company will be able to exploit those situations, go downfield a lot, and put up big-time points. So I think in this scenario, I really think the New York Giants offense is going to come to play, will exploit the New England Patriots defense. On the other side of the ball, the defense for the Giants is going to put a lot of pressure on Brady. Brady's still going to score points, but it's going to be much more difficult than he's seen in a number of weeks. So my pick for this game is the New York Giants to win the game outright. I don't like giving scores. I'm going to say 48-34. So for betting purposes, the Giants paid $2.20 to win straight up. I think that's a fantastic bet if you want to put that down. If you want to add to it, the over-under is 55. It pays $1.91 over or under. I'd say go with the over. I think both teams are going to score points, especially the Giants will put up points. New England will as well, but I think the Giants pull away. So you might be able to combine the over and the New York Giants. A third scenario, if you're very interested and just want to make it one variable, I've seen some sites that offer alternate spreads, and the one I'm seeing out there is the New York Giants to win by 3 or more, and it pays $2.68. I would jump on that big time. So again, my prediction for this year's Super Bowl is the New York Giants to defeat the New England Patriots, and I think as the underdog, they are a solid bet. So that's my prediction for the Super Bowl. Alright, it's time to get into my preliminary predictions. As I said, I'm only doing 3. I don't feel comfortable predicting all the fights without doing a lot of research, but these are the 3 fights I really get a good feel for. We're going to kick it off in the welterweight divisions. Matt Brown takes on Chris Cope. Now, Brown is fighting for his career with a record of 1-4 in his last 5 UFC fights. Ultimate Fighter alum Chris Cope suffered a brutal TKO loss in his last appearance. Brown's going to have a significant advantage in experience, and he has fought the better competition. He will also have a 4-inch reach advantage, and I think what this breaks down to is he's going to turn it into a brawl which favors Matt Brown, so I'm going to take Matt Brown by TKO. Up next, Alex Caceres versus Edwin Figueroa. This is the most interesting fight in the prelims, in my opinion. Caceres seemed to reinvent himself when he dropped the bantamweight and defeated Cole Escobedo, while Figueroa debuted in the UFC on short notice and was defeated by Michael McDonald in a close and very entertaining fight. This should be an excellent matchup wherever it goes. Caceres will have a reach advantage, but I like Figueroa's Muay Thai. But don't sleep on Bruce Leroy. I'm still going to take Edwin Figueroa to win this one by entertaining decision. Finally, Dustin Poirier versus Max Holloway. This fight has been put together following Eric Koch and Ricardo Lamas having to withdraw, and now Dustin Poirier is in a very dangerous position. A win over Koch would have potentially given him a shot at the title, but a loss here against Holloway will drop him way down the featherweight rankings. Holloway is going to have a height advantage, and he is undefeated, but with only 4 career fights, this is a big step up, so I'm going to take Dustin Poirier to defeat him by TKO. Those are my picks for the preliminaries. Let's get to the main card. Starting the pay-per-view, UFC veteran Ed Shortfuse Herman, 19-7, battles Clifford Big Cat Starks, 8-0. Now, after returning from his injury, Herman has won 2 in a row, while Starks earned a decision victory over Dustin Jacoby in his UFC debut. Herman has looked impressive in his last 2 fights, knocking out Tim Crater in 40 seconds and submitting Kyle Noak. In Clifford Starks' win over Dustin Jacoby, he showed potential, but it appeared that both combatants were suffering from first fight octagon jitters. Ed Herman is going to have a significant experience advantage in this matchup with 26 fights to Clifford's 8, and this will be Herman's 12th trip to the octagon. Shortfuse is a BJJ black belt with the majority of his wins by tap out. Against Kyle Noak, Herman showed high-level grappling, reversing an early takedown attempt and constantly threatening with submissions off his back. Herman was able to control Noak from the bottom by tying up his arm. He chained submission attempts together, threatening one side, and when Noak defended, Herman would quickly switch his attention to the opposite side, which left the other side undefended. Herman's opponent Clifford Starks is a wrestler, and his takedowns were the difference maker in his debut, but he made a number of mistakes after he took the fight to the ground. When Starks completed his first takedown, Dustin Jacoby nearly caught him with a Kimura. In the second round, Clifford allowed his opponent to control him by securing an overhook on his right arm. And finally, in the third frame, when Starks was caught again in a Kimura attempt, he made a serious mistake, transitioning backwards from side control to half guard, which made the submission attempt much more dangerous. Fortunately for Starks, his opponent wasn't able to capitalize on these mistakes, but against Ed Herman, Starks' submission defense is a huge area of concern. Starks' striking is still a work in progress. He's a powerful guy, but he lacks technique. He has a tendency to lunge into his punches while chasing after his opponent and leaves openings to be countered. Herman has shown improved striking of late. He mixes up his combinations, attacks with leg kicks, and he will counter-strike with power. Starks is going to have a 3-inch reach advantage, but unless he's worked on his overall technique, the UFC veteran will have the technical edge. Clifford Starks is a former NCAA Division I wrestler, and his game plan will most likely be built on his wrestling skills. As I already mentioned, Ed Herman is dangerous off his back, but he also has excellent takedown defense at 70%, and training out of Team Quest, he should be more than prepared to deal with the wrestling of his opponent. Now, Clifford Stark's best chance of emerging victorious will play directly into the most dangerous aspect of Herman's abilities. Starks should be more comfortable in the second appearance, but this is a big step up in competition, and he will need to limit the mistakes he made in his last fight. Even if Starks has improved his top game, a high-level grappler like Herman should be able to create his own opportunities. So my prediction is Ed Herman to defeat Clifford Starks by submission. In the bantamweight division, rising prospect Barao, 29-1, will take on Scott Young Guns Jorgensen, 13-4. Now, Barao has won 27 in a row, including a 4-0 start to his Zuffa career, while Jorgensen has earned 7 wins in his last 8, with his only loss against the divisional champion. Now, the winner of this matchup could establish themselves as the next in line for a title shot after the final installment of the Cruz Faber trilogy has played itself out. Now, Barao's victory over Brad Pickett at UFC 138 was impressive. Barao exchanged with the heavy-handed Brit, outlanding him 38-10, dropping with a perfectly timed knee before eventually taking Pickett's back and locking in a rear naked choke. Statistically, Barao's numbers are quite strong. He lands 3.19 strikes per minute while absorbing only 1.78 of his opponent's strikes. To put that number in perspective, Dominic Cruz's opponents have landed an average of 1.86 strikes per minute. Barao's Muay Thai technique is crisp. He effectively uses all 8 of his weapons, he will counter-strike, and he has significant power. Conversely, Scott Jorgensen's striking isn't on the same level as his opponents. Against Dominic Cruz, he was beaten badly on the feet, landing only 69 strikes, compared to Cruz's 243. Against Jeff Curran, Jorgensen took a number of shots, which forced him to abandon his striking and look for the takedown. If Jorgensen is going to emerge victorious in this bout, he will need to rely solely on his wrestling. He's a former NCAA Division I wrestler and a BJJ purple belt. He lands an impressive 58% of his takedown attempts, equating to just over 3 takedowns per fight. He only has 4 career submission wins, winning the majority of his fights by decision. Now, his top control is very solid, and he works hard to remain active to avoid getting stood up by the referee. If Jorgensen is able to use his wrestling to dictate the pace of this matchup, the advantages Barao has in the stand-up will be negated. But Barao is far from helpless on the ground. In fact, the majority of his wins have come as a result of his grappling skills. Barao is a BJJ black belt with 13 career wins by submission, including 3 in his 4 WEC UFC fights. Training out of the Nova União with UFC featherweight champ Jose Aldo, Barao exhibits a lot of similarities with his teammates, most notably his takedown defense ranking it at an impressive 86%. Physically, Barao is going to have 3 inches of height and 4 inches of reach on Jorgensen, which along with his kicks and knees strikes will help him to maintain distance. As I already mentioned, Barao will have a definitive striking advantage, and while Jorgensen's greatest strength is his ground game, there is no clear indication that he will be able to take Barao down, or that he will actually have the advantage if he gets it to the ground. If in his defeat against Dominic Cruz and Antonio Banuelos, Scott Jorgensen only landed 1/3 of his takedowns, far less than his career average. The grappling, or lack thereof, will be a deciding factor in this matchup. Jorgensen is a tough guy to finish, but I'll take Barao to defeat Scott Jorgensen by knockout. In the welterweight division, former title challenger Josh Koscheck, 18-5, will meet 13-4 Mike Pierce. Koscheck defeated Matt Hughes in his first fight since losing his title shot against George St. Pierre, while Pierce has won 4 of his last 5. Now, Josh Koscheck is one of the most athletically gifted fighters in the welterweight division. A former NCAA Division I champion and All-American, Koscheck completes 54% of his takedowns, averaging 2.73 per 15 minutes. Koscheck's speed and explosiveness makes his shot hard to defend against, as he is able to drive through his opponent and keep driving until he completes the takedown. Adding to his ground game, he has 5 wins by submission, and as he showcased against Matt Hughes, his ground and pound can be fight-ending. Mike Pierce, although lesser known in MMA, was also an NCAA Division I wrestler competing for Portland State University. 3 of his 4 defeats have come against some of the best wrestlers in the business, in Mark Munoz, John Fitch, and Johnny Hendricks. Pierce put up some big takedown numbers in the early part of his UFC career, but has since diversified his attack as his striking has developed. Pierce has excellent takedown defense, defending 77%. His low center of gravity makes it difficult for his opponent to get in, and Pierce's sprawl allows him to defend and quickly transfer to offense with a front headlock. Even when John Fitch was able to take him down, Pierce was able to eventually get back to his feet, including reversing from bottom to top position. Pierce also works effectively from the clinch, tying his opponent up and attacking with short punches and then punishing them on the exit with a slashing elbow strike. Now, Koscheck's striking has improved significantly from the start of his career. He has a devastating right hand and has earned knockout victories over Frank Trigg and Yuki Yoshida. He's fast on his feet and he will counter-strike, but he has a tendency to get a little bit wild in the exchanges, but he also has shown a side that's a little bit tentative. Against Anthony Johnson, Koss appeared hesitant to exchange, most likely because of Rumble's power. Now, Mike Pierce has been developing his striking skills as well. He possesses a sharp inside leg kick. He will attack with a left jab, followed by a powerful right hand, and he hurt John Fitch with a short left hook. Both men have excellent cardio and are capable of fighting from bell to bell. Now, at UFC 124, the damage that Koscheck suffered to his face, mainly as a result of GSP's jab, was devastating. Now, it was interesting to note that Matt Hughes was having success with a similar style, attacking with a jab, and it appeared to bother Koscheck. This leads me to believe that Koscheck is vulnerable mentally and physically if his opponent is successfully able to target his facial area. Pierce can generate a lot of power in a short distance. He fights a grinding style. His takedown defense is solid, and he did a lot of damage, leaving John Fitch bloodied after their encounter, and he has only been improving since that fight. A knockout is a possibility, but I like the betting underdog in this one, so my prediction is Mike Pierce to defeat Josh Koscheck by decision. In the co-main event of the night, Big Country Roy Nelson, 17-6, welcomes 14-5-1 Fabricio Werdum back to the UFC heavyweight division. Nelson snapped a 2-fight losing streak in his last fight, while Werdum's last appearance was his Strikeforce Grand Prix quarterfinal loss to Alistair Overeem. Now, Roy Nelson took the first step to improving his overall physique in his last appearance, dropping weight and displaying improved cardio. Against Mirko Cro Cop, he was able to push the pace with his striking, went 2 for 2 with his takedowns, and eventually finished Cro Cop with 90 seconds into the third round. Nelson has always been considered a very talented fighter, but the general feeling was that until he improved his physical attributes, he would never reach his full potential. This, of course, creates a problem when attempting to predict a fight involving Big Country, simply because we don't know which Roy is going to show up. Nelson has an excellent chin that has been tested by some of the best in the business. He has one-punch knockout power residing in his right hand. He used a left jab against Mirko, but he doesn't attempt a lot of kicks. He uses mass to drive Frank Mir against the cage, forcing his opponent to carry his weight while trying to catch him with quick power punches when they separated. Nelson is an experienced grappler, but he had trouble controlling Frank Mir along the cage, getting reversed and taken down several times, including by a perfectly executed judo throw. Nelson's style of fighting is something that Fabricio Werdum is quite familiar with. When Fabricio fought Antonio Silva, he did an admirable job controlling the heavier fighter along the wall, and standing the same height as Frank Mir at 6'4", Werdum should be able to exhibit a similar level of control over Nelson in close. Adding to this, Frank Mir had a lot of success attacking Roy Nelson with knee strikes from the clinch, and Werdum has shown similar technique, hurting Gabriel Gonzaga and Antonio Bigfoot Silva, and even landing a couple of times against Alistair Overeem. Now, both men are BJJ black belts, but Mir versus Nelson showed that against other black belts, Roy Nelson has issues on the ground. He was able to defend himself, but he struggled to get off any offense in that fight. Conversely, Werdum has defeated talented ground fighters like Gabriel Gonzaga and Antonio Silva, primarily on the basis of his grappling skills. Werdum has a tendency to pull guard, but I wouldn't expect him to give Nelson the opportunity to gain top control in this matchup. His takedowns consist mainly of a single leg, which again Frank Mir had success with against Roy. I would anticipate that Nelson will want to keep this fight standing, but Werdum has been showing improvement with his striking, and his use of knees and kicks should give him a more diversified attack than Big Country. Nelson has dangerous power, and Werdum has been knocked out before, but just the one time by Junior Dos Santos. If Nelson shows up in even better shape than the last time, he should be able to push Werdum, but I like the way the Brazilian matches up with Big Country almost anywhere this fight can go. Adding to this, Werdum's ability to out-grapple Nelson should demonstrate that Nelson's cardio isn't quite ready to go a full 3 rounds just yet, so my prediction is Fabricio Werdum to defeat Roy Nelson by decision. In the main event of the evening, the interim welterweight champion will be crowned as 27-7-1 Nick Diaz battles the natural-born killer 27-5 Carlos Condit. Now, Diaz has picked up wins in 11 consecutive fights, including his UFC return bout against BJ Penn, while Condit has won 4 in a row and 12 of his last 13. Now, these two fighters stack up quite evenly. Each has 13 victories by knockout, incredible cardio, and both are quite skilled on the ground. Condit has the edge in submission victories at 13-8, but Diaz is a BJJ black belt compared to Condit's purple belt. On the negative side, both have been vulnerable to fighters using predominantly wrestling-based attacks. Overall, I give Diaz the edge on the ground, taking into consideration the struggles Condit had with Martin Kampmann's ground game, but neither attempts a high number of takedowns, so I actually expect a minimal amount of this bout to be contested on the ground, very similar to the Penn-Diaz fight. Now, both guys are finishers. Condit has stopped his last 3 opponents, while Diaz has stopped 9 of his last 11. Equally as impressive is how difficult these guys are to knock out. Both have shown excellent chins in their careers. Although Nick got dropped by Marius Zaromskis and Paul Daly, and Condit was knocked down twice by Jake Ellenberger, both recovered after being tagged by punches that would have been knocked out the majority of fighters. Offensively, I give the edge to Condit in overall striking power. Condit has the capacity to stop a fight with one punch or knee, but Diaz's ability to overwhelm his opponent with an enormous amount of strikes is equally as dangerous. Diaz goes off the charts at 6.22 strikes per minute, putting up an outrageous total of 257 successful strikes against BJ, and he has surpassed the 100 strikes landed mark 9 times in his last 11 fights. Condit does have some extraordinary numbers as well, landing 149 against Rory McDonald, 168 against Ellenberger, and 209 against Hiromitsu Miura. Now, Nick's boxing is extraordinary. He attacks from various angles, effectively targets the body, gets excellent extension, and is most effective when his opponent is backpedaling towards the cage. Diaz attacks with long-range jabs and hooks, but uses his kicks sparingly. He will stand in the pocket and trade. Because of his superior reach and technique, he is usually able to win these exchanges. Now, at 6 foot tall and a reach of 76 inches, Diaz has had the physical advantage over his last 6 opponents, who stood an average of 5'8" with a reach of 72 inches. But Condit will match Nick in reach and stand 2 inches taller, which will take away one of Diaz's key advantages. Diaz has a tendency to absorb a high volume of strikes at 3.16 per minute, while Condit gets hit less frequently at 1.66 strikes per minute. Condit controls the range with a Superman punch and front kick that forces his opponent to stay back. He has power in both hands, stopping Dan Hardy with a powerful left. He mixes up his combinations, changing levels, and working in his kicks. He has a heavy body kick and will also go unorthodox, attempting a spinning elbow and a jumping knee with regularity. Both men have excellent conditioning, but a number of Diaz's last opponents had known issues with cardio, specifically BJ Penn, Paul Daly, and Evangelista Santos, who all began to fade early when Nick turned up the intensity. Conversely, Condit has shown the ability to go deep into rounds against adversaries that didn't have a drop-off in performance. This is a difficult prediction, but the difference for me is how each man compares to the previous opponents of their UFC 143 adversary. Normally, entering a fight, Nick has been able to exploit significant advantages in multiple categories: reach, cardio, striking, and grappling, but this won't be the case against Condit. Further, we have seen Diaz in trouble in various fights against Zaromskis, Daly, and even Santos, but because of the aforementioned disadvantages, they weren't able to build on the success they did have. Conversely, Condit struggles to come against opponents that focus primarily on wrestling, which Diaz will not. I like Carlos Condit's power and variety of strikes to be the difference maker. Diaz's history of taking punishment until his opponent breaks will cost him here, so my prediction is Carlos Condit as the underdog to defeat Nick Diaz by TKO and become the interim UFC welterweight champion. Alright, welcome to Kamikaze Countdown. One thing I want to touch upon quickly, I forgot about this. Jorge Rivera at UFC on FX1 announcing his retirement. Thank you very much, Jorge, for all the efforts you put forth. Couldn't be a better way to finish a great career with a victory. Now, UFC on Fox 2. Looking at the main card, I'm going to give Chris Weidman a pass simply because he took a fight on short notice and emerged victorious. Damian Maia. I believe this fight is the start of Damian Maia dropping down the middleweight rankings. I think we've seen him peak as a contender. He got his title shot. His cardio is certainly an issue. He looks like he's abandoned his jiu-jitsu in favor of striking, or simply he can't get fights to the ground and people are able to prepare for him too well. Either way, Damian Maia not where he needs to be, and I think he's done as a top contender in the division. Up next, Chael Sonnen didn't have a great performance against Michael Bisping, still emerged victorious. I think part of it could have been a weight cut. They talked about that. Secondly, more importantly, I believe he was looking past Bisping towards Anderson Silva, and I think that hurt him. Either way, Sonnen got the victory and he gets a title shot. He needs to bring a better performance against Anderson Silva if he expects to emerge victorious or even compete with the champion. Up next, Michael Bisping. Now, the Brit does some crass things that really make you cringe, but this guy's earned my respect. He put up an excellent fight against the guy who was supposed to absolutely hammer him in Chael Sonnen. And one thing I look at is Bisping has short notice for this fight, 11 days to prepare for Chael Sonnen. How would he have done with a full camp is a good question. I think this guy's going to stick around for a while. He showed how tough he is. He is an elite middleweight. face it, people who keep talking about Bisping as a nothing, he went the distance with a guy who's arguably the number 1 or number 2 middleweight in the world. So Michael Bisping will be around for a while, and I believe he will contend for a title at some point in his career. Up next, Phil Davis found out the hard way you cannot survive solely on wrestling. He ran into a guy who could defend the wrestling. He needs to improve his striking. He's a young, talented fighter. I believe he'll be back, and he will be improved. Either way, he did what he could. Phil Davis, the loss, but a very important loss in his career. And finally, Rashad Evans. Rashad gets the win. He could be guilty of looking past Phil Davis to John Jones like Sonnen was, but I did not see anything in that fight that shows me Evans will threaten John Jones. He really struggled with the reach of Phil Davis. And when he fights Jones, there'll be 5.5 inches of reach added onto the distance, which is going to be a huge issue. And he's facing a guy with pretty good wrestling and a more diverse striking attack in John Jones. I really feel Evans needs to change things up because he is headed towards a huge disappointment if he does not have a better performance when he takes on Jones, if he loses that fight and drops way down the rankings. So in my opinion, Evans really got the win, but really left some question marks in people's minds. I believe it's going to be UFC 145 when he fights John Jones for the title, if that's the fight they're going to put together. As they said, Jones will headline that event. Either way, Kamikaze Countdown. Thanks for watching. So those are my predictions for UFC 143. I forgot to mention, but the Carlos Condit Nick Diaz fight is my certified overdrive fight of the night, so please check that out if you want to put some cash down on a potential fight of the night. That's one to consider. If you are considering putting some cash down on the event, please take a look at my betting packages. Even though I had a 4 and 5 night UFC on Fox 2, the people that did invest in those packages made a small profit because one of my parlays did hit. So take a look there. You can also serve over to kamikazeoverdrive.net when we go live. More information will be available there. Thank you very much to all my sponsors. As Kane Gotti and Klubel, please get your picks in for this event as they are wrapping up the Kamikaze Overdrive Grand Prix Prediction Tournament Finals. It's 18-17 Kane Gotti of Australia leading Klubel of the USA. That's enough from me. I think I'm out of here. I hope you enjoyed the show, and always, thank you for watching.